All right, so you're in the market for a new subcompact crossover, and there are tons of choices. Pretty much every brand here in North America has something to choose from. This is the 2025 Honda HR-V EX-L. In Canada, it's the navigation trim, but basically the same thing in the US. Price as tested, just north of $41,000 Canadian, or about $35,000 in the US. I'm going to be talking about how this vehicle compares to some of the direct vehicle competitors that we've featured recently, why this is more expensive with the Honda tax, as we like to call it, and if you should consider the Honda HR-V as your next vehicle. Let's get started. I want to talk about what's underneath the hood here. A 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, there's no turbo, comes with a CVT and all-wheel drive. 158 horsepower and 138 pound-feet of torque. And as we're going to be comparing this to the other vehicles in the segment, I can tell you right now that this is kind of right in the middle of overall performance, but not great when it comes to fuel economy, which we'll talk about on our road test. So if you're looking for more of a sporty feel, something that's a little bit more spirited, especially if you do plan on putting maybe 4 adults in a vehicle of this size, this engine might feel a little sluggish for you. Now, the subcompact crossover segment is highly competitive. I mean, there are certainly brands that people will choose over others just because of loyalty, but if you are shopping these vehicles, you have a ton of choice. We've driven a number of the competitors recently, including the Toyota Corolla Cross, Hyundai Kona, Nissan Kicks, and Chevrolet Trailblazer. So I'm going to be talking about how the HR-V compares specifically to those 4 vehicles. Now, overall, the HR-V is the longest and widest of those vehicles, but it's got about the same wheelbase, about average wheelbase compared to those 4. Now, the Kicks has the most cargo behind the second row, and the Corolla Cross is actually the most cargo maximum. If you fold the seats flat, you'll have the most interior space. The HR-V is really the second from the bottom in terms of overall cargo capacity. And then when it comes to the passengers, the HR-V is the smallest when it comes to front and rear headroom, has about average front legroom, and the second best rear legroom, so you do get a little bit of extra space if you are putting passengers in the back. But I want to talk about specifically how the HR-V compares with the Corolla Cross, because Toyota and Honda's rivalry goes back to before time even began. It is one of those ancient rivalries, so it is the 2 vehicles that you're going to probably be cross-shopping if you're in the market for this segment. Now, the Corolla Cross XSE all-wheel drive comes pretty well equipped. In fact, it's got a lot more features than our HR-V EX-L, including an 8-way power driver seat, power rear liftgate, front grab handles, which is something missing on this vehicle, 4 cup holders in the rear because backseat passengers here don't even have an armrest. You also get a 9-speaker JBL audio system, and I think the most important feature is a hybrid engine, which produces 196 horsepower and has significantly better overall fuel economy when you compare it to this HR-V. Now, the HR-V has a front wiper de-icer, so if you live in a cold climate, that might be a good thing, but aside from that, there's not much else. And also, when it comes to this segment, there are a lot of different vehicles with more features than either one of those. You can get things like front ventilated seats, rear heated seats, panoramic sunroof, head-up display, 360 cameras. So it really does depend on what features you ultimately need out of your vehicle. When it comes to the Honda HR-V, though, it is offering a pretty conservative amount of tech with a pretty nice styling on it, but it is pricey. The Honda tax definitely creeps in here. But let's take it on the road. I want to talk about how the HR-V performs and still why you might want to be considering it despite it being the most expensive. All right, we're on the road now in the 2025 Honda HR-V. Let's talk about fuel efficiency first. That is going to be, as far as I'm concerned, really key when it comes to a small vehicle such as this. Now, we completed our 100-kilometer test loop in very nice conditions. It was really the first good day of spring here in southwestern Ontario. 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers. Sounds okay. It's certainly better than what Honda advertises that you're going to get. But how does that compare to the competition? Well, when we drove the Hyundai Kona about a year ago or so, we completed our test loop in 7.1 liters per 100 kilometers, and that was the N line. That was pretty well equipped. So better efficiency on that. And then we also drove the Kia Seltos. That completed it in 7 liters per 100 kilometers. So that was more efficient. But what really surprised me was the Honda CR-V. When we tested that almost a year and a bit ago, it was in January, so winter time. You're going to have the heat on higher and whatnot. That completed our test loop, the exact same test loop, in 7 liters per 100 kilometers. So the Honda CR-V non-hybrid is more efficient than this. And there's a couple reasons why. Yes, this is a smaller vehicle, so you think that it should be more efficient, but the engine is kind of underpowered. And we've talked about that before. Years ago when I first drove the Hyundai Kona, I said that the base engine on that just felt really sluggish. And I feel it's the same way with this. I drove the vehicle actually in econ mode, which we're not in because I actually would like to get to my destination, so we're in normal mode. But it's kind of painful. I'll show you. All right, so I'll give you an idea of how this is, right? We'll come to a stop, right? Let's say you gotta get off the line. Oh my God, that is so slow. And it sounds awful. Oh my God. This is probably one of the slowest vehicles I have featured. We drove a 1987 Hyundai Pony. I think that had more power than this. And then if you're trying to pass somebody, which I tried to do quite a bit when I was on the highway driving home with this thing. So let's say you're already at speed. Oh my God, it's just, it's almost like you're not going anywhere. So I think that's the main issue, is it's an underpowered engine in a vehicle that, is not very heavy, but when you load it up with all the features and all-wheel drive and everything, it's just not powerful enough. It's a naturally aspirated 2-liter engine. I think that the best way, in the same way that, Hyundai, Kia are going with a smaller displacement turbocharged engine, you're getting better fuel economy and better performance. That's what Honda should do. They have a ton of options in their portfolio. I think really it needs to have a hybrid. As I mentioned, if you compare this to what I consider to be the most direct competitor, the Toyota Corolla Cross, it comes with a hybrid at the top end. There's a couple trims that come with the hybrid. It makes the most sense. For somebody who's driving this vehicle, you're probably going to be doing a lot of in-town stuff. Maybe you're going to road trip it. That's no problem. You'll still get better efficiency. But I think for the most part, the people who are buying this vehicle are going to be driving to and from work, in town, maybe doing what I do, a lot of idling, a lot of stop and go stuff. The hybrid's going to be a much better option. So I really do hope that Honda starts to come out with more hybrids. Toyota is king when it comes to that. Hyundai and Kia both offer a lot of excellent vehicles with hybrids now, plug-in hybrids as well, which is another thing that this could benefit from. So overall, the engine, very sluggish. CVT, bleh, we don't like that either. So it's just not a winning formula when it comes to the overall performance. But you're not really buying it for that. So if you could live with it being slow, then the rest of the interior here at least is built very well. I have no issues when it comes to the overall build quality. We have about 12,000 kilometers on this vehicle. No rattling, no anything wrong with it whatsoever. The interior is pretty straightforward from what we've seen on other modern Honda vehicles. Again, no grab handles for the front passengers, and then the rear seats really are neglected. There's no air vents in the center console, there's no heated seats, there's no armrest, there's no cup holders, there's just two little map lights. So this is really a vehicle that you are not putting somebody in the back, because if you do have a passenger or two that needs to go in the back seat of this vehicle, you must really hate them if you're going to be putting them back here. And I do feel bad that my daughter has to sit back there when I pick her up every day, because it's just like a miserable place to be. Legroom's fine, but the overall amenities are so lacking, especially at this price point. For me, it would be a no-brainer. I'm going to go out and buy a Kia Seltos to get all the features that I want with more performance and arguably a better-looking vehicle. So I don't know. I mean, I think really what has happened in this particular case is Acura said they wanted to have a subcompact crossover, which the new ADX is essentially this with an Acura badge and a little bit more gadgets on it. So if you want to have this vehicle, you want those extra features, you're going to have to go up and pay a little bit more for it. So I think personally, though, like I said, there's better options as far as I'm concerned. But if you are going for overall reliability and longevity, I suppose that this will last, because it's pretty straightforward. No hybrids, no turbos, nothing to be too worried about on there. Not a whole lot of tech, and then really just the basic features, the bare minimum that we would expect to find here, i.e. dual zone climate, heated front seats, heated steering wheel. And that's about it. And Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, it's wireless at least, but for the most part, it's pretty basic. Even the backup camera, it's better on my 11-year-old Mercedes S-Class than it is on this. So I don't know. It seems to be a common trend, though. I talk about it all the time when we're doing Hondas. They make great products. There's nothing really wrong with their vehicles, but you're just paying the Honda tax to have the luxury of driving one of their vehicles. You're paying more money, essentially, for less features. And when it comes to the direct competitor, the Toyota Corolla Cross, I just think it's a better option, both on paper and realistically. Getting your hands on one maybe won't be a problem. So maybe that's what Honda's doing. They've got the cars, they've got the inventory, they'll be able to sell it to you. But if you have any questions about this vehicle, as always, we do get back to everybody in the comments. So do not hesitate to let us know what you think of this vehicle. Let us know if you're in the market for one of these and if you're cross-shopping the different vehicles, and if you choose one over another. Which one did you go with and why? We like to hear back from you. We also invite you to subscribe to the channel too if you haven't done so already. Until next time, stay dry and take care.